Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are unpacking something that feels, well, honestly, it feels a little bit illegal.
Chuckles illegal.
Or at least it feels like it goes against every single survival instinct we have been taught in a modern capitalist society. It feels reckless.
It certainly challenges the default setting of the creative economy, doesn't it? It's a bit of a shock to the system.
It really is, because usually when we talk about creators, writers, musicians, artists, anyone making something, the conversation is always about protection.
Always.
It's defensive. How do I lock this down? How do I monetize it? How to make sure nobody steals my idea? I mean, it's all about building walls, fences, and moats.
Right, the whole apparatus of intellectual property.
But today, we are looking at a source from an author named Dixon Kinqade, specifically a piece titled Why I Put My Work in the Public Domain, and he is doing the exact opposite.
The exact opposite.
He isn't just leaving the gate unlocked, he is tearing the walls down and salting the earth where they stood.
And not just cracking a window open. I mean, he is taking the doors off the hinges. It is a total rejection of the standard operating procedure for a professional author.
Completely. And I have to admit, when I first read the title, I thought, okay, surely there's a catch. Because you have to imagine the effort involved here.
Oh, yeah.
We aren't talking about a tweet or a blog post. We're talking about novels. Imagine spending months, maybe years, sweating over a manuscript. You know, the drill, the late nights, the editing, the stress, the coffee jitter.
It's the sheer grind of it.
You create this complex thing, this whole world, this story, and then instead of slapping all rights reserved on it and hunting for a publisher to give you a check, you give it away.
To everyone. Forever.
Zero strings attached, no control, no royalties, just here, take it. That is the premise we're looking at today.
It's a radical act.
It is. We are diving into Kinqade's manifesto to understand why on earth anyone would do this. Is it madness? Is he just independently wealthy and bored?
Right? Is this just a hobby for him?
Is it charity? Or is it, and I think this is where we're going, a radical rethinking of what culture is actually for? Because, frankly, my first reaction is, dude, you are leaving money on the table.
And that is the rational economic reaction. I mean, it's what we're all trained to think. But I think Kinqade would argue that the table itself is broken. This isn't just some quirky marketing tactic. It's a philosophical stance disguised as a publishing decision. And before we get into the why, which is, fascinating, we probably need to clarify exactly what he means by the what.
Good point.
Because public domain is a specific legal term, and people often confuse it with free.
Right. So he's not just saying you can read this for free on my blog, but don't you dare touch it.
Exactly. And that is a massive, massive difference between to read and public domain. If I put a book on a website for free, I still own the copyright.
I still hold all the cards.
You hold all the cards. If you try to sell it, I can sue you. If you write a sequel with my characters, I can sue you. That is not what Kinqade is doing.
So what is he doing specifically? What does he lay out?
Well, in the text, he is explicit. He notes that usually culture is locked behind all this legal machinery. But for his work, he grants the freedom to share, copy, redistribute, adapt, remix, transform, and build upon the work.
Wow.
In any medium, for any purpose. He is waiving all copyright.
That list covers everything. The phrase any purpose is just, it's so open. It means for commercial purposes, too.
It does. It means you, the listener, could take his book, print it out, bind it, sell it on Amazon, and keep 100% of the money.
And you wouldn't owe him a dime.
Not a cent. You could take his main character, write a sequel where they go to Mars and fight vampires, and he can't stop you.
He can't even object.
He cannot. You could turn it into a podcast, a movie, a video game. It is the total, unconditional relinquishment of ownership.
Which sounds absolutely terrifying to most creators. I mean, if I spent a year writing a character, I feel like I'd be so protective of them.
Of course.
I wouldn't want someone to take my serious, hard-boiled detective and put him in a slapstick comedy or something. But Kinqade seems to think the standard way of doing things, the way we all assume is normal, is actually the crazy part.
He really does.
He calls traditional publishing a racket.
He doesn't mince words there at all. And this is really our first big pillar, the critique of the industry. And we need to really dig into this because if you don't understand how traditional publishing works, or at least how it used to work, his anger might seem misplaced.
Right. It could sound like sour grapes or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Kinqade argues that traditional publishing is, and always has been, a rigged game.
A rigged game. Okay, let's unpack that. Because I think we have this romantic idea of the publisher, right?
We do.
The distinguished editor in a tweed jacket sitting in a high-rise in New York, finding a diamond in the rough manuscript, polishing it and presenting it to the world. It feels very, I don't know, gentlemanly.
Very civilized. But Kinqade says, no, look at the math. Look at the power.
So it's not about literary taste. It's about power dynamics.
It's about the power dynamic and the supply chain. Kinqade points out that historically, the setup benefits the publishing houses far, far more than the authors.
Oh, so?
He notes that the publishers control the physical presses, the distribution channels, the contracts, and crucially, the back catalogs. They own the means of production and distribution.
There was a line in the text that really stuck with me. Authors get the romance, publishers get the revenue.
It's a potent distinction, isn't it? Let's break down the economics here for a minute, just to see why he calls it a racket.
Please.
So in the traditional model, an author might get an advance. That sounds like free money, but it's not.
It's a loan, right?
It's a loan against future royalties.
Right.
And until you pay that loan back through book sales, what they call earning out, you don't see another penny.
And most books don't earn out their advance, do they?
The vast majority do not. And even if they do, the royalties aren't exactly 50-50, are they?
No, not even close. What's a typical royalty rate?
Far from it. On a physical book, a standard royalty might be 10% or 15% of the cover price. For an ebook, maybe 25%.
So if your book sells for $20, you might get $2 or $3.
If you're lucky. And the publisher keeps the rest. Now, to be fair, the publisher does have costs: printing, shipping, warehousing, marketing, editing. But Kincade's argument is that the publisher is essentially a venture capitalist who takes majority ownership of your intellectual property in exchange for access to the market.
They are the gatekeepers. That's the word he uses. You can't get your book into a bookstore without their trucks and their relationships.
Exactly. Or at least that was true.
Oh.
And this is where Kincade's argument shifts from "this is unfair" to "this is obsolete."
Ah, okay, so the internet changed the game.
Fundamentally. He argues that the internet has completely broken the necessity of this model.
He calls it a lingering death. He says the traditional model has been dying since the advent of the web.
Think about the logistics. In 1990, if you wanted to be read by 10,000 people, you physically needed to move 10,000 bricks of paper across the country.
An immense physical undertaking.
You needed warehouses in different regions. You needed a sales team calling on Barnes & Noble. You needed the returns system, which is a whole other nightmare for authors.
Oh, what's that?
That's where bookstores can return any unsold books to the publisher for a full refund. So even if you sell 10,000 copies to bookstores, if they only sell 5,000 to customers, the other 5,000 come back, and those royalties get deducted from your account.
Wow. So a sale isn't really a sale.
Not for a long time. It's an incredibly inefficient, heavy industry.
But today, right now, I can upload a PDF or an EPUB file to a server, and 1 million people can download it in 5 minutes.
Zero marginal cost. It costs the same to distribute one copy as it does to distribute 1 million. The friction is gone.
So Kinqade is asking, if the logistical barrier, the need for trucks and warehouses and the return system is gone, why are we still paying the gatekeepers 85% of the money?
And maybe more importantly, why are we giving them control?
That's the kicker. The control. Because when you sign that contract, you often sign away the rights for a very long time, the life of the copyright, often.
Right. And if the publisher decides your book isn't selling enough after a couple of years, they can take it out of print.
Which in the old days meant, okay, there are no more physical copies.
But out of print in the digital age is a real tragedy. It means the file exists, the ebook is there, but nobody's allowed to buy it because the rights holder, the publisher, doesn't think it's profitable enough to even keep listed on their website.
So the story just dies. It's locked in a digital vault.
Kinqade views this as the publisher holding culture hostage. So he refuses to participate. He refuses to hand his work over to a middleman just so they can lock it behind a paywall or, worse, just bury it in a vault somewhere.
So he refuses to pay the toll. He says, I made the thing. I'll put it out here. You can have it. No gatekeepers required. It's very punk rock in a way.
It is. It's a very DIY direct-to-reader relationship.
It is. But I want to pause on my earlier skepticism because I said, He's living money on the table, and that is still true, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Even if the traditional publisher takes a huge cut, they also provide marketing, they provide discoverability, they have a brand. By going public domain, Kinqade isn't just cutting out the middleman, he's cutting out the mechanism of sales entirely.
He is. He can't sell exclusive rights to Netflix for a TV series if he's already given them to everyone on Earth for free.
Exactly. If I'm a writer, I have bills, I need to eat. If I spend a year writing a novel, I need that year to pay off somehow. Is Kinqade just saying authors shouldn't get paid? Is he anti-capitalist?
I don't think he's saying authors shouldn't get paid. I think there are other models like patronage or crowdfunding that could work with this, but that's not his focus. He's saying that for him, personally, the trade-off isn't worth it.
The trade-off of control and ownership for money.
Precisely. And this leads us directly into the second pillar of his argument, which is deeply, deeply personal. It's about the psychology of the writer himself.
This was the part of the text where I actually laughed out loud because he is so brutally honest.
He is.
You know how authors usually talk about the muse and the joy of creation? Oh, I just sit down and the characters speak to me. The story just flows through me.
Yes, the romantic ideal. Kinqade goes the complete other direction. He tears that romantic image apart.
He says, and I'm quoting here, I don't write because I enjoy it. I don't. He calls editing and polishing the worst. He calls the whole thing damn hard work.
He is completely demystifying the process. He's telling us, look, this isn't magic. It isn't fun. It's a job. I'm not doing this because I love the act of typing or staring at a blinking cursor.
Which immediately creates a paradox, right?
Yeah.
If he hates the process, or at least finds it incredibly grueling, and he isn't doing it for the money, and he isn't doing it for the fame, why do it? Why suffer through the damn hard work?
And this is where we get to the core of his motivation. He introduces the concept of the selfish writer. And he uses selfish in a very specific, almost positive way.
Right, not selfish as in I won't share.
No, selfish as in he writes the stories he wants to read.
I write the type of stories I want to read in a style I enjoy reading. I write for myself. That's the quote.
Now, think about the implications of that one statement. It completely changes the entire metric of success for a project.
How so?
Well, if your goal is to be a professional author in the traditional sense, your metric is almost entirely external.
Sure. Did it sell? Did the critics like it? Did it get good reviews on Goodreads? Did it make the bestseller list?
You are constantly seeking validation from the outside world. And because of that, you have to protect your work. You have to market it. You have to stress about piracy and sales figures. Your ego and your bank account are tied to its reception.
But if your only goal is just to read the story yourself.
Exactly. If the goal is simply to bring the story into existence because you want it to exist in the world so you can enjoy it, then the moment you type the end, you have succeeded.
You've won.
You've won. The project is a 100% success. The external validation is completely irrelevant. It's just a bonus.
He even says, if someone else likes it, that's great. If no one else likes it, I don't care.
And that is what he calls the liberation of indifference.
The liberation of indifference. That is a powerful phrase. I mean, think of the anxiety that lifts if you can truly adopt that mindset.
It explains everything. It explains why he can walk away from the copyright system.
Yeah.
Because he has no brand to monetize. He has no advance from a publisher that he needs to earn out. He has no carefully crafted public persona to protect. He literally says, I have nothing to protect.
It's incredible how much freedom that gives you. If you don't need the validation, you don't need the control. It reminds me of that saying, dance like nobody's watching.
He is writing like nobody is buying.
Exactly. And because he doesn't need to protect the work from the audience, he can afford to be incredibly generous with it.
But there's another layer here, and this is where we move from the personal to the philosophical. It's not just that he doesn't care about ownership. It's that he doesn't believe he or anyone else truly owns a story in the way we think we do.
This connects to his deeper philosophy about creativity itself, right? This isn't just about business models or personal motivation. It's about where stories even come from in the first place.
Yes. He references another essay of his, A Question of Plagiarism, and he talks about the ocean of prior art.
The standing on shoulders argument.
The standing on shoulders of giants argument. And I love this part because it forces us to rethink every movie we've seen or book we've read. Kinqade argues that nobody, absolutely nobody, truly invents anything from scratch.
He uses that wonderful phrase, the vocabulary of storytelling.
It's a perfect metaphor. Think about language itself. You and I are speaking English right now. We didn't invent these words. We didn't invent grammar or syntax. We are using a shared, public tool set to express our ideas.
We're drawing from a common well.
We are. And Kinqade argues that storytelling works the exact same way.
Ah.
All the tropes, the character archetypes, the plot structures,
Yes.
they are the vocabulary.
The examples he gives are great. The hero's journey, the detective in the fog, the lost valley of wonders.
Let's just take one of those and dig into it. The detective in the fog. That's a great example.
Okay.
When I say that phrase, what do you immediately picture?
I picture a guy in a trench coat, maybe a fedora, a streetlight reflecting on wet pavement. He's probably smoking a cigarette, looking world-weary.
Exactly. You picture Humphrey Bogart as Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe. That's the classic image.
Sure.
But where did that come from? Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler wrote those stories in the 30s and 40s. But did they invent the brilliant but troubled detective?
They were building on something.
They were building on Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes in the 1890s. And was Doyle the first? No, he was quite open that he was building on Edgar Allan Poe's C. Auguste Dupin from the 1840s.
It's a chain. It's an evolution of an idea.
It is a lineage. And here's the thought experiment. If Poe had been able to copyright the concept of a brilliant, eccentric detective with a slightly less brilliant narrator friend who documents his cases, and if that copyright lasted for life plus 70 years like it does today,
we wouldn't have Sherlock Holmes.
We wouldn't have Sherlock Holmes. We wouldn't have Hercule Poirot. We wouldn't have Batman, who is just Sherlock Holmes in a cape.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have House MD or Knives Out. An entire genre would be strangled in the cradle.
Wow. When you put it that way, claiming you own a story is kind of arrogant, isn't it?
That is precisely Kincade's point. He says, I did not invent that vocabulary. I use it. So do you. He sees himself as a craftsman using public tools, not as some kind of god creating a universe from nothing.
It's like being a chef. You don't invent the concept of a carrot or an onion or salt. You combine them in a new way.
That is a perfect analogy. You can't copyright a stew. And his argument is, if the ingredients are all borrowed from the culture that came before us, if we are, as he says, standing on the shoulders of everyone who read before us, then who are we to put a permanent lock on the final meal?
It's a profound sense of humility, really.
It is. He says most of what we stand on was never owned in the modern legal sense. Homer didn't have a copyright on the Odyssey. The story of King Arthur wasn't owned by anyone. And
Shakespeare stole plots from everyone.
Shakespeare was the ultimate remix artist. He took history, old poems, Italian novellas, and he rewrote them for his audience. If modern copyright laws existed in Elizabethan England, Shakespeare would have been sued into bankruptcy.
You would be a content pirate.
He'd be the #1 most wanted pirate. That's a wild thought, isn't it? And this leads us directly into the fourth pillar, which is the legal and historical argument Kinqade makes. And this is where he gets a bit historical and a little political. He references another piece of his. Intellectual property and copyright became the enemy of creativity. He goes all the way back to the founding fathers of the United States.
Because that's where the legal framework for this comes from, in the U.S. at least.
Exactly. And this is critical context. Because we tend to think of copyright as a natural moral right. I made this, so I own it just like I own my house. But that is not how the law was designed.
He claims the system we have now is a complete perversion of what was intended.
A total perversion. He argues that the original intent of copyright, specifically in the U.S. Constitution, was for limited times. And the sole purpose, stated right there in the text, was to promote the progress of science and the useful arts.
Wait, hold on. So the purpose wasn't to make sure the author got rich?
No, that was the mechanism, not the purpose. The purpose was for the public good. The goal was to enrich society's culture, not the creator's bank account. The creator's profit was just a temporary incentive to get them to create the work in the first place. It was
a deal, a bargain.
Kinqade calls it the bargain. Here is the deal society makes with an author. Okay, you wrote a book. We, the public, want that book to exist and eventually belong to us. So we will give you an exclusive monopoly, a copyright, for a short, limited time.
And in the original 1790 Act, that was what, 14 years?
14 years, with the option to renew for another 14 if you were still alive, a maximum of 28 years. During that time, you are the only one who can print and sell it. You make your profit, that is your reward for your hard work.
Okay, that sounds fair. 28 years of exclusive rights seems like plenty of time to make your money back.
But here's the other half of the bargain, the part we've forgotten. In exchange for that temporary monopoly, when the time is up, the work belongs to us. It enters the public domain. It becomes part of the commons, part of our shared cultural vocabulary for the next generation to build on.
So the temporary monopoly is the price the public pays to eventually own the work for all time.
Exactly. But Kinqade argues that in the last century, corporations have completely broken that bargain. We have kept the monopoly part, but we have destroyed the public part.
How so?
Through relentless lobbying and extension after extension, every time a major corporate character, like a certain very famous mouse, is about to enter the public domain, the laws magically get changed.
Right. The Sonny Bono Copyright Term Extension Act, sometimes called the Mickey Mouse Protection Act.
That's the one. So terms are extended again and again. Now, copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. That isn't a limited time in any meaningful sense. That is effectively forever for most practical purposes.
Enriching corporations in perpetuity, he calls it.
Right. And he calls it treating culture like real estate. And this is where your chef analogy comes back, because there's a fundamental economic difference between a sandwich and a story.
Okay, I think I know where this is going.
Economists call this rivalrous versus non-rivalrous goods.
Okay, break that down for me. Rivalrous versus non-rivalrous.
If I have a physical sandwich and I give it to you, I don't have a sandwich anymore. We can't both eat the same sandwich at the same time. Its use is rivalrous. Property laws make perfect sense there. If you steal my sandwich, I go hungry.
Got it. Physical scarcity.
But a story, an idea, a song. If I tell you a story, you have the story, but I still have the story. My possession of it isn't diminished at all because you have it too. It is non-rivalrous. It's infinitely reproducible at zero cost.
So treating a story like a piece of land where I can put up a no trespassing sign and charge rent is trying to apply the laws of physical atoms to the world of intangible ideas.
You've nailed it. And Kinqade argues that by treating intellectual property like real estate, by locking it up for 100 years or more to benefit the estates and corporations of long-dead creators, we are starving the public domain.
Starving it. That's a strong visual.
It is. We are preventing the next generation from building on our work, just like we built on the work of the past. We've cooled the ladder up behind us.
So Kinqade views his action as a form of civil disobedience. He admits, I cannot single-handedly fix the system. He can't go to Washington and rewrite the U.S. code.
No, he can't. He's one guy.
Yeah.
But he says, I can refuse to participate in the pretense. He is opting out. He's taking the lock off his own work because he believes the system has become the enemy of creativity, not its protector.
It's a personal protest. He's restoring the bargain on his own terms.
He is. And there is a specific nuance here regarding the kind of work he writes, which I think is really important. This isn't high literary fiction meant to be studied in ivory towers. He isn't trying to write the next Great Gatsby.
Right. He talks about the Golden Age pulp tradition. He writes detective yarns, adventure serials, stuff like that.
We need to set the scene for this because pulp is a word we use but maybe don't really feel. You have to put yourself in, say, 1935. You're at a newsstand in a big city.
Okay, I'm there. I'm wearing a hat.
It laughs. You're wearing a hat. And there are hundreds of magazines with these bright, lurid, incredible covers. Weird Tales, Black Mask, amazing stories. And they're printed on cheap, rough, unfinished paper pulp paper.
Ah, that's where the name comes from.
That's where the name comes from. You buy one for a dime, maybe 15 cents.
A dime, so it's cheap, accessible entertainment.
It's the cheapest. It was entertainment for the working class, for the masses. You bought it, you read it on the train on the way home from your factory job, you rolled it up and stuffed it in your back pocket.
You probably passed it to a friend.
Maybe you left it on the seat for the next guy. Maybe you used it to start a fire in your wood stove later. It was disposable.
It wasn't content with a capital C. It wasn't art with a capital A, meant to be preserved in a museum.
Exactly. It was fuel. It was high-velocity, high-energy storytelling meant to be consumed, shared, and then discarded. And Kinqade argues that putting a padlock, a heavy, century-long legal copyright on that kind of disposable shared entertainment feels fundamentally wrong.
It goes against the entire spirit of the genre.
It's like putting a biometric security system on a paper sandwich wrapper. It just doesn't fit. The tool doesn't match the job.
That's a wonderful analogy. And because he views his work that way, as a continuation of that pulp tradition, he issues this very direct invitation to the reader.
Yes.
And this is the part that really bridges the gap between all this theory and actual practice. He tells you, the listener or the reader, exactly what you can do.
He's incredibly explicit about it.
He says, take a character and write your own story. Take a plot and put a spin on it.
He explicitly mentions using it in school projects, fan fiction, podcasts, remixes, anything you can think of.
And then there's that line, "You do not need my permission. You already have it."
That is such a powerful sentence, because usually if you want to use a character someone else created, you have to email an agent, you have to talk to a lawyer, you have to pay a licensing fee, you have to get approval.
And they will probably say no. Or just ignore you.
Almost certainly. But he's saying, go, run with it. I trust you.
And he directly addresses our initial objection. He admits he might be leaving money on the table.
He does. He confronts that head on. He knows that's what everyone is thinking. Dixon, you could have sold the movie rights. You could have sold the plush toy rights.
But he goes back to his core motivation. He never did it for the table or the romance or the fame. He says he did it for the tales.
He wants the stories to live. And that really brings us to the synthesis of his whole worldview. This idea of the cultural commons.
This is the vision of the future he is advocating for. A world where stories survive not because they are preserved in a vault like a precious jewel,
But because they are active. They are live. They are living in the minds of other people.
It's the difference between a museum and a playground. In a museum, the object is behind a glass case with a little plaque. You look, you admire, you walk away. The object is safe, but it is static. It is, in a sense, dead.
It's preserved in amber.
In a playground, though, you climb on everything. You jump off it, you scratch it, you scuff it, you use it. It gets worn down, but it's alive.
Exactly. Kinqade wants his work to be a playground. He wants it to be used, not just admired. And that shift from passive consumer to active participant is what makes this such a radical act.
That's a great way to put it.
When you buy a copyrighted book, you are a consumer. You consume the story exactly as it was delivered to you, and that's the end of the transaction. But when you engage with public domain work, you are invited to be a participant.
You can fix the ending if you didn't like it.
You can fix the ending. You can rewrite the clunky dialogue. You can take a minor character you loved and give them their own adventure. You become a co-creator.
He ends the piece with a really beautiful sentiment. He calls the public domain notice on his work a statement. He says, "Let us see exactly where the magic takes us."
And that word magic is so interesting coming from him, right? This is the guy who started out by saying writing is just hard work and there's no romance. He's the guy who said editing is the worst.
Right. He's very pragmatic.
But the magic he is talking about here isn't the magic of the lonely genius writer sitting in a garret waiting for inspiration to strike.
It's the magic of the network, the magic of collaboration.
It's the magic of emergence. It's what happens when an idea is set free to mutate and evolve and combine with other ideas in the hands of thousands of people.
It's unpredictable, and I think that's what he loves about it. If he keeps control, he knows exactly what happens to his story. It sits on a digital shelf, maybe it sells, maybe it doesn't, and then eventually it goes out of print. It's a very linear, predictable, and frankly boring path.
But if he lets it go, it could become anything. It could become a graphic novel in Japan. It could become a radio play in Germany. It could become a school play in Ohio that inspires some kid to become a writer. He is trading profit for possibility.
And he connects it back to that humility we discussed earlier. He knows he stands on the shoulders of giants. He is simply crouching down so someone else can stand on his.
The lovely image.
Yeah.
He is paying his debt forward to the culture that made him.
So let's wrap this up and try to distill the big takeaways here. Because we've covered a lot of ground from the economics of book returns to the philosophy of Batman.
We have.
I think we can boil it down to three main pillars supporting Kinqade's decision. What's the first one?
First, there's the clear rejection of the rigged industry. He sees traditional publishing as a system that exploits authors and, more importantly, bottlenecks culture, and he refuses to play by rules that he believes are obsolete in the internet age.
Okay, pillar one, the industry critique. What's number two?
Pillar two is the philosophical argument about the vocabulary of storytelling. It's the acknowledgement that all art is a remix. The idea that claiming total absolute ownership over a story is intellectually dishonest when you're using tropes and ideas that have been around for centuries, if not millennia.
The humility argument.
Exactly. And third, pillar three is the legal and ethical desire to restore the bargain. He wants to feed the public domain because he believes that is how culture actually progresses. He is manually resetting the clock that the legal system has broken for his own work.
It's a fascinating worldview, and it really forces you to question your own relationship with the things you create. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about this deep dive right now. We are creating this right now. Do we own this conversation, or does the conversation in some way belong to you, the listener? once you hear it and it sparks a thought in your head.
That is the rabbit hole, isn't it? Once an idea leaves your head and enters someone else's, whose idea is it? Kinqade would say. It belongs to the commons.
So here is the thought we want to leave you with today. We spend so much of our time worrying about permission in our jobs, in our creative lives. Can I use this song? Can I quote this line? Is this idea too similar to that other one? We are trained to ask for permission before we create anything.
We're absolutely trained to fear the gatekeepers and the lawyers.
But Dixon Kinqade suggests that the fundamental vocabulary of storytelling, the bricks and mortar of our entire culture, already belongs to everyone. So if the lock is already off, if the gate is truly wide open, what story are you holding back right now because you think you need someone else's permission to tell it?
The words are yours.
Exactly. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.